Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live episode of Visual Studio Toolbox. I'm your host, Leslie Richardson. Today, I am joined by a special co-host, Mads Christensen. How's it going, Mads?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing very well, Leslie. Thank you. How are you doing?
Awesome. I'm doing great, especially because 17.7 of Visual Studio is here and is ready for you to try. So it actually came out 2 days ago, right?
Yeah, I did. It's a big release this time. It has some of my favorite features, so I'm kind of excited to learn more about how it all came to be and what else is to find in this particular release.
Yeah, me too. When I was like going through the draft of the blog post for it, trying to figure out what cool features can we talk about. There's so many to choose from. So I'm really excited. Huge update. If you haven't heard about it already, go check out the blog post that went out. I will post it in the chat in a few, but here's the very long URL for it. So I will post it in chat, just copy and paste from there. Or just, Google Visual Studio 17.7 or hit that upgrade button if you've already got Visual Studio 2022. And feel free to check out the cool features and follow along with us, because for this episode, we are joined by members of the Visual Studio team who actually worked on a lot of the cool features that you'll see in 17.7, who are here to talk about how they work and why you should use them. So looking forward to that. So kicking things off, Mads, what's like everyone's favorite piece of feedback on Visual Studio a lot of the time?
Well, I think it's pretty much all over the map. We get a lot of people really enjoying what we call the quality of life improvements, the delighters. Sometimes it's the small things, right? Because Visual Studio is one of those very few apps that people actually sit in and use like the majority of their day. It's like they're home away from home. They spend like half their awakened lives using Visual Studio. And so those small quality of life things, those fixes to paper cuts, if you will, removal of paper cuts, often mean a lot to people. And so those are the things we actually hear about the most often. Now, that doesn't mean it might not be the most impactful ones, such as like better performance or new features that open up new scenarios or unblock people from doing certain cool things. We hear a lot for that as well, of course. But I think in general, like it's the little delighters are the ones that people really love.
I agree. And I think in some ways, performance, which is what we're going to talk about first, is one of those little delighters that just really help make you more productive when you're not having to like shave off seconds of time for every action that you're doing. So we're excited to say that there have been some big performance improvements in 17.7. So joining us to talk about that is Dahlia. Hey, Dahlia. Or no, not Dahlia. I'm sorry. I lied. Dahlia's going to be talking about editor stuff later. Say hello. Cool. So hi, Dahlia. That's a teaser for later. So joining us to talk about performance and not editor stuff is Nayana. Hey, Nayana. Cool. Oh, do you want to unmute yourself? Oh, you're still muted. There you go. Hey, Nayana.
Hey, guys. Hi, Matt. Hi, Leslie.
Hey.
How's it going?
Doing good. I'm excited to share some of the recent performance improvements introduced in Visual Studio 17.7. Our team has been diligently working on improving the quality and performance of Visual Studio. So addressing issues like crashes, freezes, and memory usage. So we have introduced our new telemetry systems to monitor CPU and GC performance, enabling better troubleshooting. So I'm going to share my screen. Am I sharing? Okay.
Yes. Oh, and heads up for people in chat, if you have any questions about any of the features that we're talking about here in 17.7, feel free to write them in the chat and we will do our best to answer them.
So throughout the product, we have optimized performance, minimized CPU usage, and significantly reduced freezers, all aimed to boost developer productivity. So there are many outstanding results that including nearly 50% faster finding files in the search. So we can take a look at the video that's on the next slide. So we can just get it's a recorded demo of this improvement. Hope it's playing, right? No? Okay, here we are using Roslyn open source code to evaluate this improvement. In 17.6, it used to take around 14.2 seconds. Is it playing?
I don't think it's playing. That's weird because I saw it earlier today and it was.
Yeah, I'll just walk you through. So in 17.6, it used to take around 14.12 seconds to complete the search for a given string. But however, it takes like 2.12 seconds to complete the same search in 17.7. It's almost like 50% reduction in search time across all projects in Visual Studio. So this is a significant improvement for users who use this feature.
That's phenomenal. I'm a big user of this feature. So this is I'm very delighted to hear this.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is that how did you know that like find in files or other features like that you work on the perf improvements for was the direction that you should go? Do you read a lot of the user feedback or DevCom and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. So we have our own internal systems where we call it telemetry. So where we have, as I said, we have introduced 2 new systems to that to troubleshoot the issues more. So this emerged from that analysis and research. So that's when our engineers worked on this to improve especially for finding files. But apart from that, for other any improvements that comes along, we use different sources like users feedback and telemetry and survey feedback that we receive to kind of focus and prioritize what we need to be working on for the coming up release. Okay, not just this, there are so many other things that we have released as part of 17.7. Maybe let's take a look. On the editor space, we know that editor is one of those areas that users frequently uses. They spend a lot of their time. So our main aim is to enhance developer productivity, recognizing the significance of editor features like IntelliSense, auto-completion, and light bulb feature. And as I said, we are attentive to user feedback from surveys and developer community tickets, and also the blog post comments that users give to any of the release blog posts that we publish. So by continually analyzing these real-world scenarios, we strive to refine editor performance. In Visual Studio, in 17.7, we have made important improvements to the Roslyn light bulb feature. Now you will get instant suggestions and fixes when dealing with large files, making your code experience smoother and more productive. Most of the time we receive lots of feedback from users who have large projects are too large project files and big solution size, right? So this is one of those improvement that we are releasing as part of 17.7. And not just that, on the editor side, we on the C# spell checker side, we have improved memory consumption. So just to give feedback, like background. So when it comes to resource consumption, we understand that some users and some scenarios experience high memory and CPU usage. Also, reducing Visual Studio resource consumption has been one of the popular user feedback items that we receive. So that's why we have been actively investing in optimizing resource consumption. I'm happy to share that in 17.7, we made significant improvement to the C# spell checker. We managed to reduce memory footprint of the JSON data transfer. In the previous version, it used to consume nearly 1,000 kilobytes of memory, but now with the enhancements in version 17.7, it's down to just 100 kilobytes. This is a substantial reduction in memory usage, and it will result actually in smoother and more efficient experience for C# spell checker. So on the editor space, and this is on the C# side, right? So on the C++ side, on the Unreal Engine and the IntelliSense optimization that we have worked on. So we know that developers love IntelliSense suggestion feature, and it enhances productivity. And in 17.7, we focused on improving the time to IntelliSense and time to colorization even faster. Previously, it used to take around 16.8 seconds in 17.6. Now in 17.7, it reduced to just 11.7 seconds. So these are all the improvements that are coming on the editor space. So yep. So hope users will like it. So I'll move on to the next slide. Okay. Yeah, on the debugging side, we know that debugging is super important for developers, and especially when they're working on big projects and which has multiple dependencies. Most of the time, we receive feedback from game developers. In the latest release of Visual Studio, I mean in 17.7, the significant improvements have been made to the F5 speed. So there is this opening PDB files is now optimized. It is resulting in an impressive 4 seconds reduction in the time to display project selection screen on the Unreal editor. And additionally, it also like F5 path is also optimized, leading to like 5 to 10% improvement in the debugger startup time and process launch. So these are all the exciting, I mean, not just this, there are many more improvements are coming. I just picked up few improvements that are going as part of 17.7. There is a detailed blog post which is getting published next week, just on performance enhancements. So I'm going to give the link to that maybe in the comment section once it gets published.
Awesome. Yeah, tune back into this video when it's all over, and there will be a bunch of updated show notes with all the related blogs and docs and things that you can check out after the show. So Nayana, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing what's next with perf improvements and Visual Studio as well.
Yeah, so so as I said, we are continuously analyzing this feedback and all that, and also with our own team's investigation, we have top issues. Like one is like definitely editor is one of the top areas that we are investing to improve the performance in terms of light bulb suggestions. We are receiving lots of feedback around that from users on C# side, and apart from that, on the debugger side, we know that debugging and editor, these are all like the super important areas for developers to boost their productivity. So on these areas, we are investing, and users can look forward to see more improvements in those areas in the coming up releases.
Great. Well, thanks again. I mean, it's always good to see perf improvements with each new release. And I know there's a couple questions in chat, and we'll get to them. I know we're a little short on time. There's certain questions that I think that we might be able to get to when we get to them. So thank you for all your questions ahead of time. And thank you, Nayana.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So up next, we are going to be talking about some NPM dependency management. So joining us for that is Jayan. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good. Can you hear me and see me okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, my name is Jayan, and I work on the JavaScript and TypeScript experience in Visual Studio overall. And today I'm glad to present a couple of things. So first, we will go through the NPM dependency management experience in ASP.NET project. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Yep. Can you all see my screen now?
Oh, here we go. Yes.
Yep, this is our favorite solution explorer. So starting like the 17.7 GA under dependency for your ASP.NET project. If you have like a package.json in your like directory, so for example, this app is created the ASP.NET and the Angular kind of like application, so that you have a package.json in the client app. So in here, it will list all the packages that you have. For example, you have ESLint, like this is a React, sorry. So you have the React kind of dependency on React DOM, the React script, and so on. So this is like what it is like after the project creation. So that you can right click on restore package. So it's pretty much similar to a npm to a NuGet restore experience where we run like npm install to install all those packages locally for you. So after this like command like run successfully, you will see those like warning sign just disappeared. Like, it will not tell you that it's not installed anymore. So let's wait a little bit. And at the same time, let me demonstrate other features. So in here, if you click on install new npm packages, another new window will pop up for you, and you will be able to see the window showing up. Taking a little because it's like underneath like running the npm install. So in here you can also search package. So for example, if you want to like manage your JSON dependencies, you're able to see this JSON 11, and you are able to kind of like install this package. Yeah, so since it's like let's wait a little bit till it's kind of finished installing. Yeah, I think it finished installing, and yeah, so I can install this one, and it takes a little bit. It's also running an npm install on this specific package. So after that, you will see like this package kind of install locally on your project. Let's wait a little, so it should be updating itself after it finishes installing.
So is this basically shelling out to the npm CLI and running that under the hood? So it's the same thing as if I went to the command line and did npm install, but it does that in the Visual Studio UI.
Yep.
Excuse me. Okay.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I think the CLI was the only way to really be able to install npm packages, right?
Yeah, it's finished. Like there are Yarn and PNPM users, but like I think npm is the most popular or like widely used tooling for JavaScript and TypeScript. So after the install, you can see that it's installed locally, so that you know that you have this package. Sometimes you can browse, like maybe you have like other selections that's also can be searchable. So it's actually an upgrade or better experience than the plain command line, but you also have the reliability of like doing everything like similar to a command line. So like all the operations actually map to some command line that you run like using npm.
Cool. So you have the installed locally as the label there. So that kind of implies, are you able to install remotely or on like a remote machine or specify that anywhere?
Yeah, usually like for package.json, it's like installed locally on the node modules. So you don't need it like to publish, but it's like grabbing those packages for you so that you can use locally in your project. So after we install everything, it's like maybe 100 megabytes of stuff like in your project. Then you can see all the warning sign kind of just disappear. It's very similar to the NuGet restore experience that you have. So we introduce like first like install new npm packages. We install we introduce experience of like how do you restore those packages, and this is on the like project level. So, and in here you can also kind of like uninstall this package. So if I don't want this anymore, I can just click uninstall and just forget about the package. And you can also do an update package, and it will help you like update it to the latest version. So if you're using React, maybe earlier version 16, you can just like use that to upgrade to 18, which is the latest one.
What project types does this light up in? Is it for all types of projects or only JavaScript, TypeScript projects, or?
Yeah, so two things on like the scope of this change. So this experience was there before, like the install new npm packages in JavaScript project system, like with the ES project, and now we expand it to all the .NET projects. And for example, this project 5 is actually a CS project. So like you can see those if you are doing JavaScript within your ASP.NET projects.
Okay.
And also like we currently support a single package.json. It's pretty kind of similar to the experience that you only have package.json in the client app. So in the future, we'll also support like multiple package.json. If you have a client app and web app, like multiple folders, like with different JavaScript stuff in there, we'll be able to support that and like show multiple nodes here.
So like in the same project, you have multiple package.jsons.
Yeah, this is the pattern we observe for like maybe 30% of users. They have like really huge projects with like a couple different JavaScript front end in there.
Sweet. So we got a related question before we transition a little bit. Jeroen asks, is it possible to switch to PNPM? NPM perf on Windows can be slow in our situation, and PNPM seems to be a big improvement.
Yeah, if you are using PNPM, so probably like not for this feature on the UI side. If you want to use PNPM on your like builds, like on other stuff, like you can configure that like in the MS build. You have to like use like in the project files, for example, and in that case you have to use the JavaScript project system under ESProj. So we are working on a doc to help you how you can best use PNPM if that's a tool of your choice. We hear this user feedback. Multiple users are talking about using PNPM, so we try our best to provide a clear documentation on how you can use, but probably not for this UI-based feature.
Cool. All right. So what else you got? I know you had something in the GitHub Actions realm, right?
Yeah. Before I go to the GitHub Action Room, I just talk about a really quick thing. So we have released the new kind of React and ASP.NET Core, which is a multiple project under a solution. So if I click here, you will be creating the project. It's called React App 1, and I just created it. Another big change that we made, a lot of users were asking for that, is that we are actually using Vite instead of the legacy and old kind of create React app, which is no longer the preferred choice for the community. What's great about this is like you don't need to kind of install any kind of prior dependencies and other stuff. So sometimes like before this change, you got failure on the project creation, so you probably no longer see that anymore. And it's creating a kind of like C2 project. One is server side, which is .NET CS project, and the React app, it's the client, it's the front end. So like it's so much faster. It used to take like about more than a minute to complete the action that I just demoed. Now it's taking about 10 seconds, and you have a lot higher success rate. So it's overall a better experience, a more stable experience in terms of project creation. And in terms of the tool chain, you are able to see that we have like adopted to use like Vite for the build and like locally run the preview and so on. So those are the JavaScript like update that we have. And so go back to like I have another Visual Studio instance open. So if like your solution or your repository is on GitHub, so you will see this node like appearing here in the Solution Explorer, which is the GitHub action. And you can go ahead and right-click New Workflow. So you are able to actually create a GitHub workflow using this context menu option. So target, for example, Azure. And there are two support things that we have for Azure Container Apps and Azure Kubernetes Service. So for example, I just select like a container app. And yesterday, and then you find your subscription, you find the resource group that you want to contain those, and like for example, like anyone here, and you go to the registry and you find the right registry for you. So those are all the things that we have. But like you choose the registry and for example web application, and then you choose this project, which is the backend web API at .NET 1, and you click on finish. It's creating a GitHub action workflow for you. This is what I did yesterday. So like I pushed a new change in a master branch, and this is the GitHub action workflow that we created yesterday. That's created like as a result of those operations. So you can see it tried to help you to deploy to a container app. It was a failure because the registry was not properly set up. But like every time you push the code, the GitHub workflow will help, like will run and get your stuff to Kubernetes or the container app. Yep. So that's another new change that our team has been working on. And every time you finish that, you can see the like status of the workflow here in this like GitHub action page.
That is fantastic. Let me ask you, if you have an existing GitHub Actions workflow file, like a YAML file in your .github folder, can you also see the results of the runs in this, even though you didn't create it through Visual Studio?
Yes, I think so. I'm not 100% sure, but like, yeah, so it should be able to do that.
Nice. Okay.
Well,
That's
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty sweet. And I think especially getting to sort of parity with the NPM dependency manager, very similar to NuGet package manager, is also cool to see for people who like or need one versus the other to start to get a similar experience that goes beyond the CLI interface if they don't want to do that. So thank you, Jan.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you both.
Sweet.
Thank you.
All right. So next up, we're going to talk about the thing that everybody uses in Visual Studio, the good old editor. So joining us for real this time is Dahlia.
Hey again.
Dahlia. How's it going? Would you like to share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure.
Not doing perf stuff?
Yes, I love it. I do a little bit of perf, but not full time. Hi, my name is Dahlia. I'm a product manager on the Visual Studio team. My main focus is developer productivity, so I work on features that improve productivity for developers, especially in the editor, like the two that I'm going to show today.
All right, what you got?
Awesome. So my first feature that I want to talk about is a small improvement, but something that I really loved working on because it's one of those things where you've done it before, you've been annoyed by it before, but now you don't have to be annoyed by it anymore. So let me explain what I mean by that. Let's say you have Visual Studio open and you're debugging some code and something is not working. So you decide, I'm going to copy this snippet of code and send it to my coworker. Copy it, you paste it, and you're like, oh gosh, this formatting is crap. So usually what I do is like, okay, I'm going to highlight it, like Shift Tab. Nope, that's not going to work in here. Let me like manually change it. Yep, that's really annoying. So you've probably been there, maybe sending it in Teams, sending it or pasting it in a blog or whatever it is. So our team noticed that that's super annoying. We wanted to do something about it. So now in 17.7, so let me switch to my newer Visual Studio. This is 17.7. If you do the exact same thing, you copy, and let's delete this from here, and you paste, ta-da! It's auto-formatted, and it trimmed the indentation for you. This is going to work whether you're in like Outlook or maybe in Teams. Like if you open up your Teams and you like paste in here, it'll do it correctly. And I know it's kind of a small thing, but it's something that we saw a lot of folks asking for, and we've been annoyed by it ourselves. So I'm really excited about this one.
Thank God.
You know, a thing about this that is really interesting is I've showed this a couple of times live at conferences, like very recently. And this seems to be getting the biggest applause of anything else I show.
That's what we should do full time. Let's just do this full time.
Like this takes me back to college specifically. I had a professor who made us copy paste all of our code into like a Word doc before submitting the assignment. And it was horrible because it was an unformatted disaster. And there'd be points where, depending on how long it was, I'm like, I don't want to manually tab everything. Yikes. So this is amazing.
Awesome. I'm so glad folks are liking it. We were really excited to bring it to life in 17.7. So,
there isn't there like a thing about if you copy from Visual Studio into another file or another place in Visual Studio, it does something different.
It does. So this is one of those like details. What should we do? We asked ourselves. And we were thinking, well, the IDE is going to handle that for you. So we don't want to do the formatting, because if you copy and paste within Visual Studio, it's going to keep the indentation that the IDE thinks that you should have. So this is more applicable if you're copying from Visual Studio to a different program like Outlook or Teams or Slack. It doesn't have to be a Microsoft program. It's just copying from Visual Studio somewhere else, because we're doing the trimming on the Visual Studio side for you when you paste somewhere else.
So basically it means that if I copy within Visual Studio, when I paste it, I know that I paste the exact thing that I copied. It's not like nothing is trimmed off or anything like that. So I can rest assured that within Visual Studio, it's fine. And in Visual Studio, I can just format the document if I need to. But a lot of the languages, they do that automatically when you paste.
Exactly. We didn't want to mess around with like conflicting formats. We wanted the IDE to handle that.
Wow. Yeah, that is really cool. And I know, Mads, I think you were involved in like the preliminary process of this feature coming about, right?
We did an experiment on this to see if there was an experiment, because we didn't really see this being a big thing people had requested, or it wasn't like it didn't float to the top as one, but we thought, hey, there might be something here, because as we talked to each other, like, oh yeah, that has been annoying me for 2 decades. It's like everybody agreed that this was annoying. So we did an experiment, and all of a sudden, Dahlia, I don't even remember how many votes this thing got all of a sudden, because people saw it and recognized, yes, this is a paper cut I've had. I recognize this. A fix would be great.
And it comes enabled by default. You don't have to go in and enable it. This is just the behavior you're going to see from now on, which is going to be really nice.
Amazing. It really is the little things.
All right.
So yeah, Dahlia, I know you said you had one more feature to share, right?
Yes.
And I think we're going to tag team this one. So I'd like to introduce Jessie. Hey, Jessie.
Hey there.
Sweet. Would you like to introduce yourself before we hop into the next cool tool?
Yeah, I'm also a product manager on the Visual Studio team. I focus on version control. But for this collaboration with Dahlia, my team worked with Dahlia's team to get some improvements in an area where you might be looking at 2 different versions of the same file, or maybe 2 different versions altogether. So I'll let Dahlia take the demo.
Sure. Yeah. I loved working on this with Jessie and Mads, of course. Mads extension was a really good help here. So the scenario here is, a lot of times you find yourself comparing 2 files to each other. And we had a very highly requested suggestion ticket that had about like 500 votes on it, where they were simply asking, hey, can I have a really easy way to compare 2 files in Solution Explorer? Right now, what you need to do is to go to your, maybe invoke a command or go to your Git window, and there's just not an easy way to compare 2 files to each other. So we said, yes, let's do that. So I collaborated with Jessie's team, and we ended up bringing that over here. So if you have 17.7, you open up your Visual Studio, loading up your Solution Explorer. If you select 2 files, any 2 files you want to compare to each other, so hold down Control, select 2 files, you right click, you'll see this new option called Compare Selected. And if you click on that, you can compare 2 files really easily. One case that I love using this for is especially like comparing implementations of a certain abstract class, because a lot of times if I'm creating a new implementation, I want to see how other people have implemented it, like what's really required versus not. So I love this feature for that specific case. Another entry point that we added is if you just want to compare one of your files to something on disk, not necessarily loaded in your Solution Explorer, you can right click and now you have a compare with option. And if you click on that, you'll see the File Explorer come up and you can just navigate wherever you want. Some people say, like, I have 2 versions of a repo that is loaded on my disk and I want to compare 2 versions of the same file. So this is really helpful. We've seen different people use this for different reasons in the preview channel. So I would love to know what use case that you would use this for. And I'm really excited that we were able to bring this to 17.7.
That is really exciting to see. I love the ability to be able to compare files just from anywhere. That's a really nice touch. And I can see why you worked with Jessie's team and the version control team on this, since it very much feels like a version control type feature that made its way into the editor world as well. So I do have a kind of related question, and no worries if you don't know the answer to it, but it was, where did I lose it? Oh, okay. Are there any plans to make solution folders in Visual Studio like actual files on disk?
Good question. Maz, do you know?
I'm trying to understand the question. Solution, is there any plans to make solution files, like actual files on disk? So a solution file could be any file anywhere. It doesn't even have to be in the solution folder structure. It could be anywhere on disk. And it just points to a file. It's not an actual file, if you will. It doesn't map to a file that's right next to the solution, the SLN file. I haven't heard of any plans to change that. It's also the first time I hear that requested. I've heard about people wanting folders to be able to map a folder to a solution folder, an actual physical folder. And there's a feature request on that on developercommunity.visualstudio.com. And so if you want that, go vote for it.
Awesome. Yeah. Go to the developer community.
Mm-hmm.
And another question going back to the copy trim action again. So another similar issue with copy pasting is when the color highlight and background color gets copied also. Will this also be changed, or are there already settings for that?
That is a wonderful question. So we ended up, the original implementation copied over the theme as well. And now that doesn't happen anymore. So if you notice when I pasted into Outlook, it didn't actually paste the formatting as well. It pasted it with the original formatting, or you can paste into just like, remove the formatting altogether. But originally, when we were implementing this, we were copying the theme as well, and that didn't look good at all. So right now, this is what you're going to see. And if you don't like that, I'd love to know why, and we can definitely make changes and figure out how we'd like to improve this in the future.
So just to add to that is that when Visual Studio copies text into the Windows clipboard, so the clipboard API in Windows allows you to have multiple different versions of what you copy at the same time. And Visual Studio copies clear text and RTF text. So RTF is kind of the lightly formatted stuff where there's color. It could be bolding and italics and so on, but kind of limited. And it does both. So if you paste it into an editor that supports RTF, and you paste it, it'll probably ask for the RTF first to see if it's in the clipboard. And if it's not, it will ask for the plain text. So for instance, Notepad. Notepad only has clear text. So it just asks for the clear text representation, and that's what you get. So it actually has both. So it's not so much a Visual Studio, I would say, responsibility or feature or issue more than it's the destination applications issue. Like which version of the clipboard content does it want? And you see Outlook, Dalia just showed the Outlook actually has the nice capability of using the clear text. So that's cool.
Yeah. Really cool stuff. Again, it's the little things. Compare two files and trim and copy. I love it. So thank you, Dalia. And Jesse, you might as well stick around since I know you got some more version control stuff to share. So thanks again, Dalia.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right. So what else you got, Jesse?
I have my screen shared if you want to pull that up, but we did a lot of work to update and kind of bring the graph from the Git repository window kind of up to date and also help folks out by visualizing multiple branches at once. So if you're not familiar with the Git repo window, it's a great way to kind of get up to date with what's been going on in your repo. You can take a look at all of the different commits. And prior to this new update, you were able to see your branch that you had currently checked out, which for me is form updates. And I can do some of these operations on my incoming and outgoing commits. But now if I want to kind of prepare a pull request and I want to see what are the commits that are different between my two branches, I can go ahead and add the other branches that might be relevant to me into the view. So I'll go ahead and visualize, develop, and form fix, and maybe I'll add side exploration and problem bug. You can see that we've got this great color coding where you can look at the branch label and see exactly which commit belongs to which branch. It was a lot trickier to do that before. And this also just makes some of our other operations a lot more intuitive. So you can view the difference between any two commits that you want, as long as those commits are visualized in the branches that you have. And I can just control select maybe the current one that I'm on, and then maybe this problem bug fix that I'm looking at here, and use the compare commits. And that's going to work just as you would expect by comparing commits on your same branch. But now I can do it across any branches that I might want to. This update came with some other ways to help folks in the Git repo window. We heard some feedback about needing a little bit more space to view maybe your commit details down at the bottom. So we allow you to collapse the branch list. And you can also just kind of maximize both of those items by using that quick button there. The other thing that I'd love to point out is that some of your more complex Git operations, like doing a cherry pick, for example, are a little bit easier now that you can visualize those two branches alongside each other and ensure that you're cherry picking to the correct place. Prior, you would look at your other branch and pick a commit and then cherry pick, and it would just go to your checked out branch, but that wasn't super clear in the UI. And so those operations have become a little bit more simple. And let's say I want to refocus back on my form updates branch. I can just click on it and then click this clear all, and I've got back to my original view.
This is fantastic. This really puts visual back in Visual Studio, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm a visual learner, definitely. So having more of the visual part of Visual Studio is incredibly helpful. It's nice to be able to get that graph. And again, it's like every time you're on the show, Jesse, which is a lot, it's just like, look at all this cool GitHub integration stuff that's just constantly improving the experience. It's less time you have to go back and forth. I mean, I remember when this integration was just starting to happen a couple of years ago, and like it's come so far. It really has.
Yeah, absolutely. And this window is not just for your advanced Git users. Having our now color-coded, super visual, really helpful graph can help new Git users kind of get used to the idea of merges and understanding how your branches are working together. So we're super excited to be able to bring that to folks.
Absolutely.
We do have a follow-up question here, and you might have answered it. This is from Cynthia. Is the compare with, can you compare easily with a branch from a file or Solution Explorer?
Yeah, absolutely. So this isn't brand new, but it might be a little bit, the flow might make a little bit more sense now that you can kind of see more than one branch at a time. So I'll go ahead and visualize my develop branch. And since I have form updates checked out, if I right click on develop and click on, where is it? Yeah, compare develop with form updates, I get brought to my comparing branches view. This allows me to take a look at the before and after. If you're someone that likes that side-by-side mode, you can bring that up and see your changes across the way, kind of mapping which side is which with these items here. And you can also see the different files that are different between those as well. So that's available for any two branches.
Wonderful. So hopefully, Cynthia, that answers your question.
Yeah, that was great. And then it looks like we've got one more question before we transition again. So when merging before, you could not control select multiple CS sharp, or I'm not quite sure what that is right now. When they had CS sharp in between them, you could only shift click CS sharp in a row. Is this still the case? And if so, is there any plans to change that? Oh, change set numbers. That's what it is.
Gotcha. So this is some feedback that I haven't heard before. So I'll go ahead and file that and see how that compares to some of our other requests right now. But we are thinking about doing some updates to our merge window, make sure that the kind of incoming, outgoing, all of those naming conventions can be a little confusing. So there's some updates that we do plan to make. And we'll let Leslie know to come back on the show when we've got those to show for you all.
Yep. You're a frequent offender on this show, so happy to have you back as always to talk about the latest, greatest, Jesse. So thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
All right.
So we do have some more questions for both Dahlia and Jesse, and so maybe we can take them at the end if we can ask them both to stay on for a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. We're getting a thumbs up from at least Dahlia, so it sounds like that'll be okay. And yeah, so to close us out topic-wise, we have saved debugging, of course, everyone's favorite, and we're happy and excited to announce that there are some new debugging improvements that are happening. So joining us for that is Mark Downey. Hey, Mark.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Hey. Mark Downey. I'm a product manager on the Visual Studio Diagnostics and Debugging team. So I deal with all the tools that help you debug seamlessly and profile and deal with production issues. And so today I wanted to kind of go over 3 new features that I think will be valuable to you as you're in these kind of spaces. Auto decompilations, the first one for external .NET code. We're going to move on to parallel stack updates, and that we've been promising for a while. And then finally, we're going to look at some of the CPU usage auto insights that we've been working on with the team. First to the auto decompilation. I'm actually going to start debugging this really trivial app I have here, but hopefully it will highlight some of the new features we have. Usually what happens when you're debugging is that you have a series of assemblies and plugins that are part of how you have developed your app. And sometimes it's really difficult to understand what a problem is happening without the code associated with that plugin, with that assembly. So another team works on one assembly, they provide it to you, and you don't necessarily have their source code, but you have their plugin, right? And so what I'm imagining, or what you can imagine here, I've got the call stack open down the bottom here. Let me kind of zoom in here. And you can see right now I have just my code. This is essentially just my line of code. You can see highlighted line 30. But what I can do obviously here is show external code, which is showing all the code that's not directly in my own project. And so now actually most of this is framework code. But what's interesting about this is even though it's framework code, I can now start stepping into it because it's external code, but I can click anywhere now. So I can click here in this call stack. So I know that somewhere up the line from my particular code, this was called, right? And now I get to see all this kind of external code anywhere I want. And it's automatically decompiling it for me in advance. So I'm going to actually take your attention over to the source area here over here in our solution. And you'll see this new node, this new solution node called external sources. I'm going to open that up. And what that's done is everywhere I've decompiled, it's kind of added these DLLs in here. And so I've had the opportunity now I could actually go ahead and start digging around in here, looking at particular pieces of code. And I actually have in my actual original code, just a small little library I created called My Little Library. And what I'm going to do, because I don't have the source code in this particular project, I'm going to go ahead and right click on here and decompile source to symbol file, right? And now you've probably just noticed that it's now jumped my DLL right here into my external sources. Now this is another library of code that I can have access to literally with the CS files. So again, I can double click in here. And now I'm in this decompiled code. I don't know if for those who have tried decompilation in the past, it would throw up a page. You would have to make a bunch of selections. It would ask if you've got the symbol file somewhere that it could use. There was a bunch of really confusing suggestions. Now we're kind of just making the right choices for you here. And so now if I want to, I can set a breakpoint inside this decompiled location in a assembly that my other teammates have given me. And if I go back here and hit continue, I'm now stopped at this decompiled piece of code. Again, it just makes my life a lot easier now because now I can start to investigate some of the problems I might be having with this source code, with this thing. All I've got is the assembly, but now I've got like the details, and it's really, really helpful for my development and debugging experiences.
Mind blown.
Thank
you, Mark. Thank you. Thank you.
I remember how much of a hassle decompilation used to be. So
yes.
Yeah.
So for some of us, if you don't want this, to be very clear, you can go to your debug options. I don't know why you'd want to do this, but I'll just share this anyway. But you can take it off if, for example, you're saying, actually, this particular piece of code I don't want to decompile. It's not something I want to look into or look at. You can switch it off and just have the normal type debugging experience if that's what you want.
Really
I'm so happy for this. This is absolutely fantastic. So was it the previous release, like some months ago, where you could go to definition like F12 into external sources?
Yes,
but now you added that you could step debug through them as well.
Exactly that. So while the compile scenario was good, we've kind of made that really, really good, where you could go to definition in framework code, go to definition potentially in a package that you have. Now, while I'm debugging, that's really what I wanted. If an exception occurs in somebody else's package, I can get a better sense of what that issue is and can kind of get feedback to them, get information to them on why this is problematic in the scenarios I'm using it.
Just wow.
Good stuff.
So how does this work because there's different ways to look up symbols. Like, of course, one is if you have all the files locally in your project, it will just get you straight there. But then there's stuff like symbol servers and source link in NuGet packages, and now there's decompilation. So how does it determine what to do? Is it like a fallback mechanism, or?
It's basically a fallback mechanism. Obviously, if you've got source code, that's the very best thing for you, right? Because you've got accurate. Source link would be me knowing that the source exists somewhere else, and we can connect to that because that's going to be accurate. And then the final kind of fallback mechanism, the last step, is decompilation. While it's perfectly accurate, it may not be the exact kind of way you wrote it, is the way decompilation interprets it. So we use that as the final step. So ultimately, you'll have code, you'll have things, you'll have enough information to kind of get to the bottom of a problem.
That's fantastic.
Shall I move on to the next topic? Shall I jump right in?
Go for it.
I just want to show this. I just want to show this comment. This is a big deal, Mark. Victor, he's like, all right, big deal.
Cool, good stuff.
That's wonderful.
All right, next one up. Parallel stacks. Few months ago, we were on the show. We had a great kind of conversation about Parallel Stacks window, how it helps developers do a much better job of understanding those kind of massively multi-threaded applications, or async, where you're using things like sync and async. That can be kind of complicated to kind of envision. And so we were talking about the Parallel Stacks window as an answer to how do I visualize what an app is doing when it's got multiple threads going on. And so I've started this application. It's from our community members. It's from two people I want to shout out, Christopher Nassar and Kevin Ghost. They used to do a talk about Parallel Stacks window, and they highlighted some of the problems with it. And so I'm using their code now to talk about some of the improvements we've got with it. And so I'm going to go ahead and start this application. And it eventually gets into what we call a deadlock, which is a situation that is unrecoverable, where thread A is waiting on a resource held by thread B. Simultaneously, thread B is waiting on a resource held by thread A. It's not going to get out of that situation.
So fun.
Okay. And in fact, we've got into that situation now. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the debugger and go to the Parallel Stacks window. Now, this isn't a really massive application, but some of the dumps Christopher was showing me, Christoph Nassar was showing, were thousands of threads. We're kind of lucky here in that this has kind of got about 18 threads. It's just about manageable. But imagine now opening a memory dump or looking at somebody's application, it's got thousands of these threads. That's going to be really difficult to manage and negotiate, right? And so what we looked at was, can we help you filter down to your code? So you remember before we showed the show external on the call stack window. We've put that now in the Parallel Stack window. So I can quickly jump between my code and everything's code, the presentation framework's code, the everything that goes into your app. What I'm probably just going to be interested in mine to start with. The other thing we've added here that, again, we talked about in the last show was the filtering. So now I can decide exactly which modules I want to include in here. So again, I want to just focus on this particular application. And let's say I just want to focus on a particular method in this application. I can do so by using this filter mechanism to select the assembly and the methods and the frames that I want to include in my analysis. Again, this is just about the triage moments you have where I want to focus. I have to decide whether this is a problem with my code or somebody else's. And that easy way we can switch between them, I think, is going to help customers and developers kind of just really be able to debug faster.
This is so exciting to see. As Mark mentioned before, we did a double feature essentially highlighting the parallel stacks tools window a couple months ago with him and Ram Kumar. So we'll link to those after the show in the show notes if you want to go check those out, which you totally should if you want the full in-depth experience on parallel stacks window and also get a greater sense of how much it's improved since then. This is excellent. Really cool. I mean, I remember when I was first on the debugging team, this window looked nothing like what it does now.
We have all kinds of stuff now. You can select and start to copy and share this. So like if I need to share call stacks with other members, I can literally do a drag, select, copy. This is what we were talking about at the last one. We've got these features in now. You can paste that in an email and just say, hey, these are the problematic call stacks. Can you get somebody looking at this? This is in kind of a really good format that we think people will find helpful and useful.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
There's a question for you here, Mark.
Sure.
Is this debugging available for .NET MAUI?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. I hope you were going to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got one more feature to show. Do we have time?
Yeah, we got some time. I know we're a little over, but hey, the more the merrier.
Cool. Okay, great. Let me show you the last one. I'm excited about this one. This is from the Profiler team. So you've got an application. It's on a critical path. It needs to be as fast as possible. It needs to be as performant as possible. And you're not sure where to start, right? You know there's a Profiler tool, but it looks like, magic to you, right? So what we've been working on is this idea of auto insights. We know what are known bad anti-patterns when it comes to performance. Maybe the obvious one you know about is if I take a string and just concatenate it with another string thousands of times, right? That is obviously going to be bad. It's going to, for a variety of reasons, it's going to use an extraordinary amount of CPU. Well, we've been working on these type of anti-patterns so that they pop to you when you're doing profiling. So I've just done this, and to avoid using any more CPU on this machine than I have to, I did this just before we started here. But I just ran essentially this application, and it has a new section that I want to highlight here called Top Insights. Let me just kind of pull in here. And it's giving information here about the top issues and how much CPU they've consumed. You'd be required to interpret that by looking at the ways in which, different lines of codes have been problematic for you. But now we're actually saying this is the impact. This is the literal impact. And in addition to that, we're also saying, hey, you want to go straight to that to view that source code? Let's go look at how it impacted. So this one's string concat. We've talked about that one in the past, but we've added some new ones around enums, the has flag and the toString. Again, I didn't know that was problematic. Concurrent dictionary counts or concurrent dictionary keys. These are all problems. And in this instance, we've got this concurrent dictionary. So I'm going to view the source code here. And here I'm starting to see a couple of different examples of the concurrent dictionary that are problematic. And this is the real one that seems to have a real problem, is this particular line here. There's a string compare on that as well. There's multiple areas for trying to remove. What's interesting here, I've highlighted the problem. That's the top thing we wanted to do. Top insights, get you understanding what the problem is. However, we're also experimenting with Copilot. So you also get to ask the questions. As soon as we've highlighted the problem, you get to ask the question. But what's wonderful here is that we are thinking about what the best way to ask the question is. Rather than leaving you to figure out the ins and outs of the question, we'll ask that question for you. So we've put that question in here with significant information here to help you kind of craft the perfect question. And then what you could potentially do here is get an actual kind of response. So it's got the entire method for me. It's put enough information in Copilot to say, give me a reasonable, better way to do this. And so now I can go about the process of inserting that code over my other code and rerunning this analysis again. And hopefully, you know, the point here is that you have this righteous loop at which you're the center of, and you're kind of making the decision, hey, this is impactful, and this is some code I can try, and this is going to give you some good ideas, good things to test out, check out, and you can quickly compare what you had before to what Copilot is suggesting would be better for you.
That is so exciting. I love being able to get these insights. You don't have to, I mean, because, you know, debugging and profiling is already a frustrating experience, right? So being able to just get some help on Visual Studios and like, look, here's the problem, and here's how you can address it.
Yeah, there's no doubt that there's a class of problems, frankly, that customers kind of fall into, developers fall into all the time. And I've done it. Like I said, there's several of these that I had no idea. I had no idea that the bad effects of using an enum has flag was. I use that all over the place. But now that we know that, it would be really interesting to understand which are our critical paths, which are the hot paths of our development, of our apps and services, and can we make sure that we kind of have a good understanding of the impact. I think it's going to be fun to see people use this tool with a bit of a leg up.
Yeah. So then additional question from chat is, do you have a more in-depth resource for using this?
We do have a documentation on the profiler details. I'll make sure I share that with you, and we can share it into the channels with the folks here. But we have done a lot of work on improving our documentation for profiling especially. I'll make sure I grab that from the team and share that.
And if they're not too old, I also did a couple profiling videos for Toolbox, like a year or two ago, but no, a lot's changed since then, but I might like them anyway.
I feel like the profiler is kind of like a hidden gem of Visual Studio that like go to debug, start profiling today, everybody. It's like your app is going to be better off by doing that. It's absolutely fantastic. Cool. And the amount of improvements that you've made to this thing in the past just year alone is staggering. Like performance of it, the feature richness, the actionability of what you see of the results. Like I know what to do now. Before it was like what you're saying. It was like, does it apply really? Do I have to do something? Is it my fault, or is it framework fault, or is it like, that's all very clear now. And so if you've done it, if you tried it in the past and kind of given up on it, try it again. It's a different experience. It's so fantastic.
Definitely on the performance thing, we have done a ton of improvements to just the general speed of getting going and gathering the data, and then providing assistance and conclusions on the data. I think you'll find it's much improved.
Awesome.
Is this in the community edition or only in enterprise? How does that work?
Profiler is in all of the editions.
Woohoo!
Nice.
Yep. Try it out today. Seriously.
Yeah, try it out. There's no excuse.
Yeah, don't sleep on that. Like I do debugging tips and tricks talks all the time, and I never have time to highlight the profiler. And I'm always like trying to petition to have a whole talk just dedicated to the profiler because it deserves it. There's so much.
Last shout out, I do want get in on the Copilot preview if you can. We are looking for as much feedback as we can on these kind of fixes that we are proposing here. Let us know. I'm really, really interested. You can get a hold of me. I'm on Twitter at PapaString. I'm on every social network at PapaString for what it's worth. On my blog, PapaString. So feedback here is really, really important. We're really interested in the scenarios you would like help with and how you judge the quality of the responses we're giving you. So reach out to me if you see something that you love, or even if you hate it. Just that information is really helpful to my team.
Nathaniel wants to know if the profiler is built into Visual Studio or if you need an extension.
The profiler is built right into Visual Studio. Now, the pieces that were Copilot driven are part of the preview extension. that needs to be installed, and that kind of pops up the Ask Copilot links, and that kind of enables that experience straight through to the chat. So if you want both of these things, you'll have Profiler, and you'll need to be part of the Copilot preview.
All right.
Yep. And is the Profiler on VS for Mac?
That's a good question that I don't know the answer to, I'm afraid.
Cool. I'm not quite sure either.
If it is, it's not the same one.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Awesome. Well, clearly you got a lot of love for the Profiler. Definitely check it out, y'all. It's just there. It's in community. You don't need enterprise for it. There's a lot more to it even than just the cool CPU usage auto insights.
Yeah, there's tons.
And yeah, also go check out Parallel Stacks window. Seriously, it's evolved so quickly in the past couple of years. And yeah, thank you for sharing, Mark.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Sweet. All right. So unfortunately, we are a bit short on time, or actually we are over time. So I think it's probably best that we close out. But if we didn't get to your question today, then you have a couple ways to reach out to us. A lot of us have Twitter accounts, or X accounts. Please reach out to us there. Or if you have a specific feature request or something that you wish could be better, or maybe you're experiencing bugs with the features that we talked about or features we didn't talk about, go to the developer community and either vote on existing issues there or create your own and petition for votes. We actually do read them. A lot of these features did not happen without the help from you all. So thank you. Like things like copy trim, that doesn't exist without our audience and developer community, right?
Right.
Yeah. So other than that, if you're wondering, believe it or not, as much as we talked about a lot of different features here, we didn't talk about all of them. There's a whole segment in the blog post, if you haven't checked that out yet, that's about C++ and particularly C++ improvements as it goes with the Unreal Engine and game development. And you're in luck because 2 weeks from now, I will be doing an episode with David Lee as we highlight all of those cool brand new features. So if you're a game dev or you're using Unreal in the context of Visual Studio a lot for C++, don't want to miss that episode. And if you want to learn more, make sure to go check out that blog post. That is Visual Studio 17.7. You can also go check out the related release notes. And more importantly, just go install an update to 17.7 and try all of this out and share your feedback so that we can continue to make Visual Studio better than what it is.
Yep, exactly that. Go try it out. I'm sure you'll love it.
Yep. So Matt, thanks for joining me today. And thanks to the audience for all of your awesome questions and for putting up with my weird aspect ratio change. Basically, this is what happens when you get a mandatory Windows update in the middle of the stream. I just swapped to my phone. So appreciate it, y'all. And until next time, happy coding, y'all.